Throughout the times, people have used all kinds of substances to get a trip to an altered state of consciousness. These trips are likened to the experiences that mystics describe, or those that some traditional cultures attribute to the deceased in their passage to the hereafter, or events typical of certain psychosis. Widely known as psychedelic experiences, the occurrences accompanying the altered state of mind are derived from the use of psychedelic drugs. We know about the psilocybin, or magic mushrooms, as they were used by shamans to get to other dimensions of reality. We've heard about soldiers getting LSD in World War II when going to battle. Recently, ayahuasca seems to be getting a lot of attention. This is why we have created this video episode to show you all you need to know about psychedelics. What exactly are psychedelics? The word psychedelic evolves from the combination of two Greek terms, the noun psyche, meaning soul, and the verb delaun, meaning to manifest, to make visible. When you put these two Greek words together, you get the simpler version of the word significance, which is manifesting the soul. Now, let's go deeper. Psychedelic drugs, also known as hallucinogenic drugs, are psychotropic substances that affect the central nervous system by altering the release of serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter involved in sensory perception, behavioral regulation, and mood alteration. So unlike other psychoactive substances, such as stimulant drugs and depressant drugs, psychedelics can cause hallucinogenic effects. This is the main reason why users of these substances experience altered states of consciousness that have been compared to the mystical trance. In addition to being used as recreational drugs, they have had an important role as entheogenic drugs, linked to spirituality. Many of these substances get their origin from the plant kingdom and have been consumed since the dawn of humanity in the context of shamanic rituals. Formerly, its consumption was part of a magical religious belief system. It was restricted to participation in certain rites and was supervised by an expert, the shaman. In other words, it was a consumption regulated by the community, which did not entail negative stigmatization. Today, its use as magic plants or entheogens persists. Its link with the religious phenomenon impacts its legal status, permitting members of certain cults to consume it. Outside of the religious sphere, many users justify its consumption with seeking inspiration or self-knowledge, but also with a purely recreational purpose. What are the most consumed psychedelics? The most widely used hallucinogenic drugs can be classified according to their origin into natural drugs, psilocybin, magic mushrooms, ayahuasca, and mescaline, and synthetic drugs, LSD, mdma, and ketamine. It is necessary to state that the adverse effects of natural hallucinogens tend to be underestimated compared to those of synthetic origin. This is due to a cultural bias. Most people relate the natural hallucinogens to being the safest and healthiest drug to use. Can't say where this mindset stemmed from, even though it's very rampant. But you should know, be careful of this bias because natural hallucinogens, in addition to alterations in the perception of reality, also cause addiction and serious side effects, which we will talk about much later in this video. In case you've been wondering, how do psychedelics work? The truth is that understanding how psychedelics impact the brain has become increasingly important, especially as doctors and researchers too are learning that psychedelic drugs can help in very positive ways, especially the brain. Psychedelic medications in the right doses and under strict conditions are known to salvage psychological and neurological disorders, including depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. However, it is not surprising that different psychedelic drugs alter brain functions. A recent research has shown that these type of drugs can physically alter the brain, even to the extent of changing or modifying the structure of different brain cells. In a recently published study, which was carried out on both nerve cells in laboratory samples and in animals, it was seen that psychedelic drugs could cause an increase in the branches of neurons, synapses, and dendritic spines. Unbelievably true. As a result of this new discovery, it was pointed out that the psychedelic-induced brain alteration could have interesting benefits for patients with certain mood disorders. According to those responsible for the aforementioned study, this is a result of the fact that in people with problems of depression, anxiety, or mood disorders, the neurons located in the prefrontal cortex, an area of the brain important in part for the control of emotions, tend to wither, while dendritic branches and spines located on neuronal branches, which they use to communicate with other neurons, tend to retract. Thus, as we stated, those responsible for the study discovered that psychedelic drugs or medications were capable of increasing the number of dendritic branches and spines in neurons, and also increasing the number of synapses or connections between neurons. To study these effects, the researcher first tested the effects of various psychedelic drugs on the neurons of rats in petri dishes. They discovered that most of these drugs were able to increase the number of dendritic synapses, branches, and spines in rat neurons. In the next part of the study, the researchers administered psychedelic drugs to the fruit flies, finding that the number of branches in the neurons increased again after the administration of drugs. Finally, the scientists gave the rats a psychedelic drug known as DMT, a compound responsible for the psychedelic effects associated with ayahuasca, an herbal tea from the Amazon. Thus, the researchers were able to discover that, although the effects of the drug did not last long, most of the drug was removed within a few hours, while their brains continued to rewire for at least 24 hours. The findings would be comparable to how ketamine works, which is used primarily as an anesthetic, but it's gaining popularity as a means of treating depression in recent years. In fact, according to experts, ketamine may actually be the most advanced fast-acting antidepressant. This means that it is possible that these medications can help repair the different brain networks located in the prefrontal cortex, and that they could be damaged in conditions such as depression or anxiety. In essence, psychedelics can really change neural structure. And that's really important because the structure of the brain controls function. Then again, brain imaging studies have shown that psychedelic medications also exert profound effects on neural activity. Thus, when brain function is under this influence, it would be less restricted, which would mean that you are in a better position to improve your mood. And the networks of the brain would be much more connected, which would allow a greater state of both consciousness and introspection. These psychological benefits suggest the psychedelic drugs could become effective therapeutic treatments, as many studies have found so far, as they appear to have the potential to treat post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, addiction, and many more mental health conditions. Finally, in the words of the experts, although psychedelics may not become viable therapeutic treatments, they can be used as inspiration for the creation of drugs with similar action and effects, which could be used safely on a day-to-day basis and certainly every day. You have heard about the good benefits of psychedelics. Little wonder it's been used all over the world. But is that all there is to know about such types of drugs? Are there any side effects that you should look out for? Let's explore the risks involved in consuming psychedelics. Psychedelic drugs interfere with the production of serotonin. That is, they alter brain chemistry. Its use can cause psychotic episodes in susceptible individuals, and it interferes with the cognitive processes of attention and memory. Although LSD or ayahuasca has not been shown to produce intense addiction as other substances, they are very harmful. Ayahuasca contains the all-powerful DMT, which stands for N-dimethyltryptamine. DMT consists of a chemical compound that is already present in the human body. The human brain is created to naturally produce DMT. Some researchers also speculate that DMT is released during other heightened experiences such as an orgasm. What does this signify? If DMT has already been produced in the human body, then its further consumption would lead to an overdose, which can stimulate death. In addition to the psychological effects that we have already pointed out, cardiorespiratory failure, seizures, and nausea, among others, hallucinogenic drugs leave the user in a highly suggestible state. For this reason, users run the risk of being coerced and manipulated, suffering abuse of all kinds. Drugs such as LSD have been used by cult leaders as a brainwashing technique. Others, like ketamine, are part of the arsenal of thieves and rapists due to their ability to alter the will and cause amnesia. Natural psychedelic drugs present another added risk. The amount of active ingredient can vary greatly between plants of the same species, thus increasing the danger of overdose. In addition, in many cases, the health system is not familiar with these substances, which makes treatment in the event of poisoning difficult. This is where we close today's chapter. A question: do you think the positive benefits of psychedelics are worth the risks? Kindly share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Whew. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Show us some love by liking this video. If you are new here, please subscribe and ring the notification button for more interesting episodes you sure don't want to miss. Bye!